Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into a seriously fascinating corner of the justice system to demystify exactly how everyday rules are created. We often think of Parliament as the absolute only place where laws are made, but that's really just a fraction of the story. Today, we're going to explore how judges themselves actually create the laws that shape our lives. And we're going to do it by looking at one of the most bizarre, famous, and frankly, grossest historical cases in all of legal history. Right. Let's set the scene and instantly hook into this mystery by asking a really hyper-specific question. Who pays for the snail? I mean, imagine it's a totally typical evening out. You're enjoying a drink with a friend, everything is completely normal, until you make a horrifying discovery at the bottom of your glass. This isn't just some hypothetical nightmare, by the way. It actually happened, and it triggered a legal mystery that reads almost like a true crime story. Who is actually responsible when things go horribly, horribly wrong and the everyday products we're given? Well, this brings us to an unforgettable story, the landmark case of Donoghue versus Stevenson. Picture this. A boy goes to a bar and buys a bottle of ginger beer for a girl. She drinks it, but completely unbeknownst to the bar or the customer, the bottle contains the decomposed remains of a snail. Gross, right? Unsurprisingly, the girl becomes severely ill. Naturally, you think she could just sue the bar or the manufacturer. Case closed. Well, actually, scratch that. Here was the massive legal loophole of the time. She couldn't. Why? Because she didn't buy the drink herself, the boy did. Therefore, legally speaking, she had no contractual relationship with the bar. The rule back then was insanely rigid. No contract simply meant no lawsuit. Which brings us to a really massive problem. Who is to blame when the law just falls short? We have a severely sick girl who suffered a clear wrong, but she is left completely without an obvious legal remedy because the existing laws simply didn't cover this specific scenario. The legal framework of the time absolutely demanded a direct contract to hold someone liable for a faulty product. It was a glaring, dangerous gap in the justice system, leaving everyday people completely unprotected from sheer carelessness. Okay, let's dive into this, because this is the exact eureka moment where the legal system finally stepped up. The case ultimately went all the way up to the House of Lords. They looked at this gaping hole in the law and established a brand new, absolute game changer of a legal concept called the duty of care. They decided that, hey, manufacturers actually have a direct responsibility to anyone who suffers due to their irresponsibility. The House of Lords realized that you shouldn't need to be the exact person who handed over the cash just to be protected from a decomposed snail. So the absolutely crucial point is this. From this moment forward, the precedent established that anyone is responsible for their carelessness if it causes harm to someone else. Period. Regardless of whether they are in a formal contract or not. This single decision completely, fundamentally shifted the legal landscape. It meant you no longer needed that direct contractual relationship to hold a careless manufacturer accountable for the harm they caused you. It was a massive, massive victory for consumer protection. And this brilliantly illustrates the broader mechanism at play here, which is called judicial precedent. Think about how this progression flows. We start with a past case, or snail in the bottle. That directly leads to a present decision, where the judges step in and establish the duty of care. Now, here is the real power of this entire system. That decision binds future cases. Future judges dealing with similar issues absolutely must follow the rules set by this past decision. It's like a powerful chain reaction of lawmaking. Let's solidify this concept for a second. We are talking about judicial lawmaking. While we hear a lot about Parliament passing acts and statutes on the news, judicial precedence is a vital, living source of lawmaking that operates entirely outside of Parliament. As we've just seen, judges are actively creating law for future judges to follow. This means our justice system is built heavily upon past cases informing present decisions. Judges do, in fact, make laws that govern our everyday lives directly from the bench. But all of this naturally leads us to ask a pretty critical question. If future judges are strictly bound to follow past decisions, does the system ever stop itself from being permanently frozen by bad precedents? Like, what happens if an older decision doesn't quite fit anymore, or was just flat out wrong? The system wouldn't work at all if it were completely rigid. There have to be mechanics in place for what happens when a precedent cannot, or really should not, be used. Let's move to and see how this builds by looking at how the law adapts. There are two specific exceptions where precedent cannot be used. On one side, we have a process called distinguishing, which you can kind of think of as separating decisions. And on the other side, we have overruling, which is a much more forceful action where courts step in to actively overturn a prior ruling. Let's break both of these mechanisms down. Okay, so the first exception is distinguishing. According to the legal processes we're looking at, distinguishing is applied when the broad strokes of two cases seem pretty much the same, but the judge finds a crucial distinguishing factual difference. In these instances, the court finds a legal pathway to essentially separate the decisions. This ensures a past precedent isn't just blindly applied if it doesn't actually serve the exact specific nuances of the current situation. It's a highly precise tool judges use to keep the law fair and relevant. Now, the second exception is overruling, and this is exactly what it sounds like. Overruling occurs where a court higher up the chain states that a legal decision in an earlier case is simply wrong, and they just overturn it. Boom. This is a genuinely vital quality control measure. It ensures that if a flawed legal decision is somehow made lower down, the higher courts have the absolute authority to step in, correct the error, and prevent that bad precedent from binding any future judges. So, to summarize the absolute core takeaway of our explainer today, while Parliament is busy writing the formal statutes and legislation, the justice system actually functions as a living, breathing entity. It's the judges, through the mechanism of judicial precedent, who shape the living law. They take those broad rules and, case by case, decision by decision, they adapt them to the incredibly unpredictable realities of human life. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought to ponder. How did one tiny snail change the entire legal landscape? It's kind of incredible to realize that a single unfortunate incident in a cafe created massive ripple effects that fundamentally altered how everyday rules are created and how we as consumers are actually protected. Keep that in mind the next time you think about where our laws really come from. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you. Catch you next time.